Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore Uranus, the ruler of the sky, in my view of astrology, very much to do with innovation, freedom and independence, stationing direct in the sign of Taurus. Now, it's going to be travelling forwards for the next 215 days. There's so much that's going to be going on in that time through to the 1st of September. And I'm going to give you the inside story of all of that. There's going to be some incredibly powerful aspects. That's connections to other influences, either planets or, critically, the fixed star Algol. But what has the retrograde from the 29th of August last year for 151 days, what has that meant? What's the difference between Uranus travelling forwards and when it's in retrograde? And why is being in the sign of Taurus a bit of a tough hoe anyway? And which zodiac signs are going to benefit from this transition and which may find it a little more challenging? I'm then going to go on to share each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect over the next 30.5 weeks in terms of your sun or your ascendant. Now, understanding where Uranus is in terms of the overlay in your natal horoscope by house, and it could be more than one house during this extension that Uranus goes through of 8 degrees and 10 minutes, is really going to help you to understand the impact in your uniquely personal situation beyond just your sun or ascendant sign. Now, if you don't know your natal chart, you can order one from me, your Life Roadmap Report, which will give you searing insights to the patterns that have played out in your life so far, and you can get a much greater understanding of how to work with them. Also, in my special package of 30% off, you can get your 12-month transits. That's how the interacting planets in the sky connect to that blueprint that we're all given at the time of our birth. These charts are totally individual to each person they're produced for. 30% off, please see the link below. You'll get your free Zodiac, Love, Chinese and Indian horoscope forecast for year 2024 with them too. Also, if you'd like to know more about Uranus itself, you can download my free factoid by clicking on the link beneath this video too. So Uranus is going to be travelling forwards for the next 30.5 weeks, pretty well mainly in the last decan of the sign of Taurus. Currently it's at 19 degrees and 5 minutes. Now, the particular significance of that last decan is it's sub-ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a resisting and sometimes restricting influence, and also because the fixed star Algol, which is at 26 degrees and 10 minutes in the sign of Taurus, has got a fearsome reputation, said to be the demon star. And Uranus is going to be connecting to Algol within 3 degrees from the 7th of July to the 22nd of November. Let's speak of mass catastrophe. Unfortunately, because Taurus is an earth sign, it could be something to do with the earth that's going to come into focus, because one of the interesting things about Uranus is that it's of course the ruler of the sign of Aquarius. It's in its detriment in Leo, it's in its fall in Taurus, and it's exalted in Scorpio. But all those signs are fixed signs with a preference for a degree of continuity. And that's the supreme irony of the sign of Aquarius. There's a duality to Aquarius because Saturn, the traditional ruler, is about that stability, and Uranus can be provocative, likes to shake things up, but because of the fixed energy, that creates resistance. So I think it is possible that we could see, something to do with earthquakes, volcanoes, perhaps even tsunami through the 7th of July to the 22nd of November. And because Uranus is a very radical influence and Saturn, the sub-ruler of the sign of Taurus, is resisting, that's going to up that tension that can be created between those two planets, even though they have that shared relationship in their rulership of Aquarius. So let's explore the archetypes of Uranus. It's the ruler of the sky in mythology, I feel it's the ruler of astrology, can be about higher truths and innovation, freedom, change, individuality, embracing our uniqueness. Now, in terms of the sign of Taurus, it first moved into Taurus for 5 months in 2018, but it's been there full time since March 2019. Now, over these last 151 days of the retrograde, I think we've seen a lot of disruption, choppiness, resistance to change, which has created stress and frustration. We've seen a lot of stealing going on. Certainly in the UK, people just walking into supermarkets and taking food, which Taurus rules. So that's unique disobedience of public order. Now, of course, some of it is driven by sheer need and poverty. But we also have seen disruption to food distribution. Lots of industrial action over pay terms and conditions, again, very Tauran. And we've also seen a much greater enforcement of digital services, Uranus innovation, in terms of how money's handled, when a lot of people still have a preference for cash. And also seen a lot of banks being closed, so less choice in terms of how transactions can be made. Now, the other thing that we've seen whilst Uranus has been in retrograde, sadly, over the last 3 or 4 months, with the situation in Israel, which started with Mars and Pluto in a square, but also in Ukraine, Uranus was retrograde when the invasion by the Russians began as well. And because Taurus can be about land and Uranus can be about that strident rebellion, I think there is a real link. And of course, the situation with the Second World War started to build up with Uranus in Taurus from the mid-30s. Now, Uranus is going to make its first blush in the sign of Gemini on July the 7th, 2005, although it will invert back into Taurus once more. So what we have each year is a retrograde which lasts 151 days, and we have a forward motion that lasts 215 days. So the retrograde is about 41% each year. Now, I mentioned that I would share some upcoming aspects, and there's some absolute crackers. We've got Uranus trining up to Mars, with Mars being in Capricorn and very close to Mercury as this event begins. That's exact on January the 29th, builds up from the 27th, the day of Uranus going direct, through to the 3rd of February. We do have a square with the Sun. I'm not going to go into great detail with these, and that's exact on February the 8th through 5th to the 11th within 3 degrees. Uranus square Mars, that's perhaps more challenging. That's exact on March the 9th. Now, Uranus conjunct Jupiter, of course, is getting a huge amount of discussion going on, and the exact date is April the 21st, but within 3 degrees, the event starts to really build up from the 30th of March and goes through to the 9th of May. So that's really a big one, because that's the first time in 14 years that that's happened. What we've got there is the growth and potential for innovation that comes together with these two planets combining, but maybe we are going to see some kind of uplift around the financial sector. That would be something that would be welcome. But what we're also seeing with Pluto in Aquarius is that whole discussion and whole reality of AI, robotics, and automation really coming more and more into our consciousness and our everyday reality. Jupiter in Taurus, and of course it is going to be moving on. We have that glorious conjunction between Venus, Jupiter and the Sun on the 23rd of May, but it is going to be moving on into Gemini on the 26th of May. But Jupiter in Taurus is slowed down. Jupiter can promise more than it realistically delivers. So what we could get is that Jupiter's connection to faith, to do with values in a really positive way, can harness the speed and electricity that Uranus can create, And maybe there is going to be a lot of dialogue going on. And within that discussion, we're all trying to find a way that in this shifting landscape, we can still find some stability and foundations in which to live our lives. Now, on the 15th of July, Uranus does go exact with Mars, and I think this can be very provocative as well. It's because we have got such a lot of bombastic language being used around the world, there's not a lot of consensus building. It's a lot of popular politics, of course, and so Uranus combining with Mars could be a bit unstable because it can see action happen very quickly, but it could be linked to assets, money, but certainly in terms of lust, that combination could be very interesting and give people an inordinate desire to get up close and personal to someone and quickly. So we could see some heightened flings around the middle of July. Another square with the Sun on August the 19th, with the Sun just coming to the end of its journey in the sign of Leo. But in terms of the event chart, I wanted to share with you the solar event chart just to keep it really simple. And that puts Uranus in the second house, and it puts Mercury and Mars in that conjunction in house 10. So I feel that as this event comes in, we could see, particularly with Venus also in Capricorn, we could see some better news coming through in terms of the financial environment, which has really been challenging for a lot of us over the last year and a half, if not longer. But in terms of the event chart, again, just a brief look on the screen now, Uranus is in house 3, which very much to do with innovation around technology, and we know that's part of our growing reality. So when planets are retrograde, I feel that it's much more of an internal journey, and if you have been feeling that things aren't shifting and changing and evolving in the way that you would like, that may have created a sort of a welter of frustration, but also a sense of exhaustion. Now, of course, it depends on where Uranus has been impacting your natal chart. Now, if you have planets in the last 10 degrees of Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, Pisces, I think that this can be a really exciting event for you. But what about if you are a Taurus and you have influences at the back end? Well, Uranus, of course, is very provocative, and if you are someone, particularly with that sub-rulership of Saturn, who does resist alterations, you like to do your own thing, it could push you to change things up in a way that people who are in the first 20 degrees of the sign of Taurus have been experiencing in a very powerful way in the last 5 or 6 years. So and that can be difficult if you are someone who feels that your choices are limited in some ways because your circumstances are changing quickly around you. None of us like that. So the best way to handle Uranus in its flow, if you are in the last 10 degrees of Taurus, is to embrace it. Try to find ways that you can modify, upgrade and refresh your thinking. If things have got stale, that's what Uranus is asking us to look at. But most of all, it's asking us to get truly in touch with the most authentic part of our being. Now, please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces. Now, Aries, having Uranus in your second solar house over the last 5 or 6 years, probably has seen some instability at times around your everyday resources. And that may have been particularly true since the end of August, when you've gone through the retrograde and your values may have been tested. Maybe you've used Uranus's retrograde in a positive way to declutter and create space, which Uranus really appreciates, and perhaps also bring some income in if you've sold off things you no longer need. But also, if a particular way of working, because there's been such a lot of energy in the sign of Capricorn, which is to do with your worldly interaction, if your way of working has needed to change or alter, that may in some ways have felt a little bit challenging, but it does bring opportunities too. So through to the 1st of September, wherever you're born in the sign of Aries, do look again at your attitude to resources and also your attitude to everyday money. Are you being a little bit fearful? Could you be a little bit bolder? Could you perhaps be a bit more conservative and thrifty? Everyone's unique situation will mean that their relationship to Taurus moving through what for you is the second solar house will be in itself totally unique. But if you have got some really good ideas to do things in a fresh and different way, why not give them a whirl? It may also be something that you've been doing as a side hobby or interest, could be converted with a little bit more guile and giving yourself permission to give it time. And that can be something that can be very good for you in a financial context. Now, Taurus, if you are born in that first 2 decans of the sign of Taurus, as I mentioned before, you've probably been hit by the whirlwind that is Uranus for some while. But whatever part of Taurus you are, all that energy that's been culminating in Capricorn, particularly with Pluto, has really been asking you to explore things in a different way, fresh philosophies, travel, being more spontaneous in your approach. But as I mentioned, if that's something that's a little bit more fearful for you, if you just try to stay as you are and try to close out the world, it probably isn't the best way to go. It's probably important to accept, whether we like it or not, that society is changing so quickly. And if you can go with it, you might surprise yourself by just how much you can get a buzz from altering things up. Sometimes the very thing that we cling to can actually be a little bit of a prison. So liberate yourself, which is what Uranus can be very much to do with, to give yourself permission to really try to be more experimental and a little bit more edgy in your approach. So Gemini, over the next 30.5 weeks, I think a lot of new information is going to be rushing at you. But I feel that you're really going to be up for receiving it. You've got a very nimble mind. Sometimes your ability to get your head around things very quickly, however, can stop you exploring things in a little more depth. Because as soon as you've pivoted and moved on, perhaps your attention is drawn to something else that may stimulate you. But now the Sun and Pluto are in house 9, you're really going to open up, and it's all about information, and some of it can be about higher knowledge. But uniquely, Uranus is in the part of your situation to do with more psychological, spiritual and emotional awareness. And because Uranus is about that higher truth, if there is part of you that you felt a little bit unconnected to, a little bit out of touch with, perhaps you are someone who feels a little bit wary of anything to do with psychology, you're really going to expand your consciousness massively over this next 215 days. So really exciting. Now, Cancer, I mentioned for you that this can be a really good development because your sign, although it's not a fixed sign, you are a cardinal sign, but because you have an appreciation of security through the moon, your ruler, and you kind of like to steer things, sometimes on your terms, so radical stuff, whether it's people who have different ideas to you or can be a bit changeable, can make you a little bit nervous at times. But the very people in the past that you may have found to be a little bit of a turn-off, you can start to understand much more where they're coming from. So people who are very outspoken, who push back, who don't necessarily accept rules and regulations, you can become much more comfortable with people like that. But also your own future plans can just roar forwards in such an amazing way because, you're going to be so fired up, and because there is such a great collection of energy in your 7th house of relating as Uranus goes direct, connections to people where you share an ethos or a vision or a sports team or a hobby, or you just like hanging out and having fun, can prove to be really, really exciting for you. So Leo, the movement of Uranus through the sign of Taurus has been provoking you to change things around your work. But because Pluto has remained in the sign of Capricorn until last Sunday, apart from those 11 weeks, for so long, I feel that your conditioning has really sort of made it difficult for you to be quite as flexing and open to doing things that are a little bit more daring. Rather like Cancer in a way, I feel that you can be. It's interesting because obviously Cancer is ruled by a luminary, the moon, and you're ruled by the ultimate luminary, the sun. But I feel that you can both be quite conservative with a small c. And I feel that Uranus is now saying to you over this next 30 and a half weeks, look, why not experiment? You know, if you've got a job at the moment that you're not really enjoying, I think Pluto and the Sun moving into your 7th house is going to suggest you want more connection to people. And it may mean that you have to stick your head out a bit and do something that tests you, that you're not necessarily in control of the whole situation, that you may have to work in a more connected way with another person, not feel quite as much in charge. But you know, if you give yourself permission to go for it, you can end up in a situation which really switches you on. So if work feels dull at the moment, or your life role feels rather predictable, you're being pushed to enter or exit out of your comfort zone and just see where it may take you. Virgo, I mentioned that for late Virgoan people this can be really exciting, but it can be for every Virgoan in terms of whole sign astrology, because the 9th house where Uranus is, and of course Jupiter, is about experimentation. The irony is the Sun and Pluto have moved into the part of your situation to do with being of service. So there could be a little bit of a tussle between continuing to do the things that are deeply ingrained in you, you know, being very punctual, being very efficient, being very conscientious, against being really the ultimate rebel. So if you're someone who hasn't had the opportunity to embrace higher education, this is a brilliant window of opportunity. If you love travel, but you've been to the usual flesh pots enough times to have sort of done that, seen that, going somewhere that's completely off the beaten track where you can get much more understanding of the other cultures that you can download from that, maybe something that really excites you as well. Most of all, you're going to need to move around more. So whatever your situation, I think you're going to be getting fitter and pushing yourself to be much more active all around. So Libra for you, Uranus and Jupiter continue in your 8th house. That's where we're most invested. But that's an irony in itself, isn't it? Because Uranus likes to be free. So if we're invested in a situation where it doesn't feel like it's on an edge, we're not really getting a sense of excitement. And that could be around your love life. With the Sun and Pluto having moved into the 5th house, you may be yearning for that spark which really brings any relationship to life. I read recently the best way to get what we need in relationships that we're not getting is to actually provide the thing that we're yearning for that our partner's not given us. So if you feel that your partner's a bit predictable and you know isn't necessarily interested in the things you like, well, suggest doing things. And if you provide the leadership, see where it goes. It won't necessarily work out exactly as you want in every situation, I don't suppose, because life's never that simple and pat. But if you don't provide the provocation, then it won't change. And the 8th house, in a way, needs some kind of challenge. Could even be some flaming arguments. But if it creates that fire, that furnace, which heats up passion and makes us feel alive, then that's going to be really important to you. Now, of course, the 8th house in a more practical way is about shared finances, business. So if you are an innovator and you've got different ideas, this can be a very exciting time for you. So Scorpio, this event occurs in your 7th house. And if your 7th house has felt particularly choppy through the 29th of August to now because of the retrograde, or you know, whether you felt changeable or someone you're connecting to who's felt changeable, either is possible, or maybe just in general, people you're connecting with seem to be always altering their stance, which may have proved to be rather frustrating. But because Uranus is exalted in your sign, there is a part of your nature, despite you be in a fixed sign. And because Pluto is your other higher octave ruler, you do understand change in a way, but change tends to come rather reluctantly. You kind of don't want it, and then when it comes real quick. So it could be that someone's going to whoosh into your world through to the 1st of September and really captivate you and make your pulse race. You're going to encounter someone very exciting. You could have a connection with someone with a business idea, a shared hobby, or you could meet someone, an opponent that you find is really very challenging and will keep you on your toes, but actually you can grow through that challenge, I feel. However, if you are in a romantic situation, which tends to have some pretty entrenched approaches and attitudes and conditions, Uranus is really asking you to try to find that ignition point, because there is a part of you that, although you can keep your true feelings quite hidden, there is a part of you that does like having some kind of challenge. But also someone could be a little bit unpredictable to you, and if you're someone who has felt that you've been a bit more in charge in a relationship, that could be unsettling, but it certainly won't be dull. Sagittarius, the world of work has been unsettled for you. Perhaps even your health has been very up and down in terms of energy, stress, headaches, migraines, ever since the end of August last year. Because of course Jupiter, your ruler in your 6th house of health and fitness and work and structure, was also in a retrograde. But these two planets are going to meet, of course, from the end of March through to that first 10 days of May. What a window of opportunity. The world is changing at such a pace, but I feel that now the Sun and Pluto have moved into the 3rd house, and Venus is giving you some reward for all your patience and diligence financially, I truly hope. If there is an opportunity that comes up that really can get you excited, I think you should really consider it seriously. It could be a combination of technology, innovation, providing a service or products which liberate people in some kind of way, Uranus, but in a practical way that they can get some kind of real tangible benefit from. Capricorn, Uranus going direct in your 5th house is really welcome. If you have felt that your love life or your social situation, it just hasn't perhaps been easy, particularly with those 3 planets culminating in Sagittarius at the back end of 23 and the start of this year, squaring up with your 3rd house. You've really not been quite sure where you're standing, I feel, in certain situations. But a part of you obviously has an appreciation of being very steady, because that's your ruler, Saturn. So Uranus in a way is a provocative thing, but it's in a part of your chart along with Jupiter which really can push you to make the most of your flair, your talent. If you are continuing to have a role that is playing safe and pays the bills, could you explore a hobby or a creative interest in a way which gives you increased pleasure in terms of your free time? If you're footloose and fancy free, what a window of opportunity is coming up for you right through to the 1st of September. But you're not going to have a sparkling connection if you're sitting on your hands, so you do need to be proactive. Now Aquarius, if you've been following my story over the last 2.5 years, so 3 moves, a house that I'd been in for absolutely years, like over 30 years. Then we moved into a really lovely house in the countryside, sort of idyllic cottage, if you like, beautiful garden. And but the environment there didn't quite work for us, but it was still a beautiful place to be in, a very enriching experience. So renovated those 2 houses, and then we've moved on to a 3rd, and the energy to go again is not quite there. So it's been very chaotic, and particularly since the end of August, because we actually moved in the 3rd week of September. So, but Uranus being in the 4th house has shook things up for a lot of Aquarius folks in terms of where to live, how to live, connection to emotions, inner world, family. It's either kind of span out, freedom, got closer, depends. you know, obviously it will be uniquely different for each person, and obviously as the planets move forwards, it depends if they're impacting in a more direct way with where the personal planets are in our natal chart. So I think that Uranus going forwards and meeting up with Jupiter can bring something to a point of an outcome which can be pleasing. And also, because this part of Taurus is governed by Saturn, which is our co-ruler, there can be things to be gained. So if there has been a lot of change, a need to create more space at home, or to have a little bit of a declutter, you've had a different relationship to furnishings or whatever. For me, furnishings just seem to be incredibly unimportant at the moment. And I've got Venus and the Moon all in the 4th house. So, you know, really sort of a nice, calm, peaceful home is really important. And we've got that, but, you know, we've got things to do. But at the moment, it's just really enjoying being in the environment that we're in, very close to the sea. And of course, the 4th house is very Cancerian, so very much the sea. So it all fits, but going forwards, Uranus meeting Jupiter, I think, is a real good news story. Now, if on the other hand, finding your perfect home has proved elusive, maybe it is a case of refining what you've got, refitting, amending, knocking walls down, building walls up, showing some flair around the do-it-yourself side of things. Or maybe there's going to be some changes in terms of home and family, like someone leaving home, someone coming back home. All that kind of stuff is possible for us Aquarius folks. So Pisces, Uranus going forwards in your 3rd house. You probably felt really overwired at times since the end of August. But I still feel that a lot of goodness can come through it if you've been able to block out the information that's overstimulating you in a negative way. Like, you do see some people saying, I'm going to have a Meta vacation, because Facebook is now called Meta, or the holding company is. And I always think that kind of stuff's really good, because it gives us chance just to come inside ourselves. We're just blitzed by so much stimulation. But equally, because of Uranus going direct, you may encounter someone in your locality that is great fun to be around. There could be a connection with somebody new. Your appreciation of the digital world can really grow. If you have been a born-again Luddite, absolutely refusing to have anything to do with laptops or computers or so forth, you could get really smitten between now and the start of September. But most of all, you're going to need to feel nimble, that you can move around and flex and not feel too penned in your situation. I feel that whether it's work or home or your relationships or your interest, there does need to be some fluidity, because of the mutable energy of the 3rd house. Is very much like Gemini. Of course, the host is actually Taurus, so you could find yourself thinking very nimbly about how you can use your resources, and that can be very exciting for you. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for sticking with me as I've unpacked Uranus going direct, and wishing you all the best for the next 215 days. And please like, comment, share or subscribe.